This box is a gathering of several boxes, and we had some that were downstairs on the shelf, some of them were in the back closet. My dad's mother's, and this is just some things that were obviously very meaningful possessions to her. There are lockets of hair from all of her children, and it looks to be that they were taken at a very young age. Some of these items go back to I believe a child that she lost in Perryville, Missouri, where my dad was born, are pre their family moving to Minneapolis.
Okay. Mary Butler had 7 children with her husband, John W. Only 4 would survive to adulthood. Farming was tough in Perrysville. In 1910, the Butler family moved to Minneapolis to seek a better future. Life was better in Minneapolis. Son, John Alonzo, grew up playing on Minnehaha Creek and attended local school. John's father provided for his family in any way he could.
Came to Minneapolis, I know that he farmed and then built homes. And then because construction of homes and any construction was quite seasonal then, my father told me that they had a little shop on Cedar and Lake Street. And in the winter time, when they couldn't do outdoor construction, they built cabinets and they built cedar chests there. And I can remember my dad telling me that when he would get out of school at Roosevelt, he would go there and work in the afternoons and help his dad.
John attended Roosevelt High School and continued to nurture his Minneapolis connections and friendships. Inspired by his brother Bud's work as an electrician, he began attending vocational school.
This book was an original book that my dad had from Dunwoody when he was there as a student. Dunwoody was built as to simulate a factory of that day, and they wanted the students to be in a factory atmosphere. And one of the things that they did from the very beginning, all the way through when I went to school there, is they had time clock. When you came to school, you had to punch in, and this 632 was his time clock number.
William Hood Dunwoody was the vice president of Washburn Crosby and Company and had numerous financial interests. On his death in 1914, he endowed over $3 million for a vocational school. He requested a school wherein instruction shall be given to the youth of Minneapolis and Minnesota without prejudice. The school started modestly in Central High School. The first director of Dunwoody Institute was Dr. Charles A. Prosser. By 1918, the school moved to its new and current location on Wayzata Boulevard. Dunwoody played a role in civilian training for the war effort in 1918, establishing a relationship with the federal government that would one day change John's life. He worked as an electrician's helper to pay for schooling and eventually graduated from Dunwoody in December of 1928. In June of 1929, at the age of 19, he graduated from Roosevelt High School and began working as a licensed electrician.
I really never worked. There was a little popcorn stand down on Cedar and the Parkway when I was in school. I used to go there after school. I had a girlfriend and we both worked there. We were working, serving ice cream. Of course, I must have graduated first, and then I got married. This is his first job at Dunwoody.
In 1931, John returned to Dunwoody and became an instructor at the age of 21. In 1938, the Dunwoody Institute began a new program on air conditioning. They chose John to lead this new department and increased his duties to day school supervisor in 1939. When the U.S. was drawn into the war in 1941, the federal government called on Dunwoody. The Institute, in turn, called on their rising star John to coordinate the 24-hour-a-day war production training. John was called to active military service, but his mentor, Dr. Prosser, wrote the War Department, urging the point that he was more valuable in his training role. In 1945, Dr. Prosser retired as acting director of Dunwoody. J.R. Kingman, then treasurer, assumed the directorship, and John Butler became the assistant director at the age of 36. By this time, John and Dorothy had a young family.
Now, as I said, there's a lot of things in here, and there's some personal things. And there's a pair of coat hangers, and I'm pretty sure that I made these in school when I was probably first grade or whatever.
I can't remember doing a lot with my dad, unfortunately, because my dad was busy. He was a very busy man. And my mother was my best friend. We just did all kinds of fun things together.
After the end of World War II, the federal government created the Economic Cooperation Administration, set up to promote growth in young democracies in the face of growing communist influence. The federal government called on Dunwoody Institute to support a mission to South Korea to help support the emerging vocational schools there. It was June of 1950.
This is a letter that my dad wrote back to, titled "What an Evacuee from Korea Thinks About His America."
After boarding a Northwest DC-6 at Wold Chamberlain Field, John and his colleagues traveled to Seoul, South Korea. They met only one day before the Communist North crossed the 38th parallel. By the second night, members of the delegation were drawn into service to effect blackouts and burn U.S. documents in the Banto Hotel. The next 24 hours were met with anxious waiting as they prepared for evacuation. Early on the morning of June 27th, 200 U.S. nationals were trucked under darkness from the Banto Hotel 16 miles to Kimpo Airfield. 5 military air transports began flying them out to Japan in groups of 40 under fighter aircraft protection. John was on the 4th flight. His aircraft and the last one to leave came under attack from Yak fighters. The Yaks were subsequently shot down and all 5 transports safely exited to Tokyo. John continued to consult overseas on behalf of Dunwoody Institute, the federal government, and the Ford Foundation for the next 2 decades. He traveled during the earliest and most dangerous days of commercial air travel. He visited the world's most unique destinations, but the focus was always to support vocational education development. The most significant achievements were in Burma, Indonesia, and India. School curriculum and facility development never got in the way of the personal relationships that were fostered. Although signs of Cold War political agendas were ever present, John always maintained the human focus of the student and his efforts.
This is a letter from 1961 from Elmer L. Anderson, then Governor of the State of Minnesota, to my dad, thanking him for his...
In 1957, John became the director of Dunwoody. Working with legislators, he helped develop the basic structure and funding for Minnesota vocational education. He was appointed by the Governor of Minnesota to the State Board of Education and was a long-standing member of the American Vocational Association. Perhaps his proudest moment came 8 years after his retirement in 1982, when he was awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Minnesota.
He had a great sense of humor. He would come home from work and he would have this look like crawling in, and well, he was good at most anything he did. It was amazing. He has that card trick, and nobody can play that. I don't even look at it because I don't know what it's all about. There isn't anyone else that can do that. I'm glad he went, not showing anyone.
American writer Clarence Kellen wrote, "My father didn't tell me how to live. He lived, and he let me watch him do it. This couldn't be more true than with the unfolding of the John Butler legacy."
He had to work hard, and I think he learned craftsmanship and skills, because I think my grandfather was very skilled and was a craftsman, and was the most important thing I learned from my father. It was some of the same things that he learned from his father, and to try to do a good job of what you did, and to be skilled in what you did.
Probably to take the time to do things right the first time, so you wouldn't have to go back and do them again. I learned a lot of business stuff. I mean, that's mostly what I learned from my dad. I would say that was a good characterization. Entrepreneur.
I taught you.
Probably treat people how you want to be treated, and respect.
Try as hard as you can in everything in life.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Principles are the gift between generations. A legacy is the gift passed on.
I want to be a professional football player because I'm pretty good at it, and it's cool that you're getting paid for something you like to do.
Now you're talking.